Great morning, world. Welcome to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast with your host, Dragon.
Awesome. Great morning, world. This is fun. You know, one of the uncomfortable spaces that I love to grow in is in the realm of technology. You know, I went to school to become a doctor, and you know that was at a different space and time in my life. But they don't teach you anything about social media and microphones and all that stuff in any sort of health professional sense. So I love it though, because you know, as you know, and we talk about so often, you know, where growth takes place. You know, I just love doing things that make me a little uncomfortable. I've actually learned over the years to get excited about that. So special time. You know, just to throw out this new vibe that's happening with How did that happen?
I don't know. I'm just checking that I've got all of my stuff off. Who knows?
Oh, you know what? That might have been through like Facebook or something.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So once again, you know, the obstacle is the way. But what's cool about the Rise Up with Dragon show is that it kind of started off, and this is an interesting inlet to what we're going to talk about here, Tamsin. I never intended to make this podcast something that would like go viral. I wanted it to be out there for other people. But my intention was to practice unpacking thoughts. And, you know, I just was developing the habit per se of reading things, starting my day off the right way, practice, journaling. And then I would take my thoughts that I would receive like an antenna. And then I would start to, first of all, when you write it, you kind of explain it to yourself, but then I started to dictate it. And I never knew how many people would start to listen and watch. And now with the advent of Clubhouse, you know, this is just nuts. So I'm getting approached now. Tamsin's actually a friend, and we have to give a shout out to the amazing Howie Craw from the How We Doing It show. I would not know who Tamsin was. I probably would have crossed paths because we have so much in common. But you know, this is just really exciting, and we've got some amazing guests coming. Already 3 more guests booked, and you'll hear about that. And our social media game is on point. And I always have to say, you know, here on people are already asking to speak. So you guys we'll do that in the Clubhouse room, and you can get to Clubhouse. Follow me at Makes Sense. Follow me at Clubhouse. Click the bell, and then you'll get in there. But we always talk about, you know, who sponsors this show. You know, are we going to try to make money off of it? We started off saying this show is sponsored by nobody, right? Because we don't want to bore anybody, but we have friends and family. So this show is sponsored by Tamsin Astor, and also you'll find out her channels in a second. And this show is, as always, sponsored by My Chicken and Karma Mind, which is the leading meditation app on iTunes. Get in there and change your life. I don't even know if that's her tagline. So first and foremost, synchronicity. Before I introduce Tamsin, just how random. I saw her come on this morning. We were doing a little pregame, and she took a sip of her coffee. And let's see what your coffee cup says. It says, "I am a ray of fucking sunshine." Sorry about the swears, but check this out. Just what are the chances that we have not only yellow mugs that say the same things that match her book, which we'll talk about. So, you know, was this supposed to happen? Yeah. So for those of you that are on Clubhouse, you can't see it. You can watch the recording later. Tamsin and I just completely randomly have the same cups. You got yours from your friend?
Yeah, my friend Christopher sent it to me.
That's insane. And I got it ironically from my sons, because they just get so sick and tired of me always being optimistic. So first of all, reading Tamsin's book, and this is a book, you know, in our realm, we talk a lot about habits and consistency and persistency and discipline and all that stuff, and how, you know, if you change your habits, you actually are going to rewire your mainframe and your processor so that you have a better response system to the happenings in life that are out of your control. So I'm reading Tamsin's book, which kind of looks like our mugs, Force of Habit. And the first thing that you're going to do when you read her book is you're going to get to know her as we are right now. But what an amazing background. Her accolades are amazing. She's an academic. She comes from neuroscience, which for me is, neuroscience is like the McDonald's of personal growth for me. You know what I mean? Like I like to just like binge it. Chicken and I love neuroscience, and we know a lot of common people in that sense. But she comes from that world where she's got all these brains and know-how, and she organically kind of fell into the place that she's in right now as an author, a public speaker, as a coach. She actually refers to herself as the chief habit scientist, which I love that. And I have another tagline for you, because after reading about you, you're the chief habit scientist, but I also feel that you're a sommelier of habits.
I like that.
You like that? Okay, good.
Yeah. It's actually funny that you're dragon, because I was born in the year of the dragon, and I really resonate with the dragon, and I've got an 18-inch dragon tattooed on my thigh. So when I saw that, I was like, oh my God.
So just so you know,
meant to be.
Chicken is sitting in the room, and Chicken just got uncomfortable right there. So yeah, we have a lot in common, and you know what? It makes total sense. I one of the things that I like to do, I was writing a specific chapter in my book the other day, and I started talking about it, and Chicken told me about this amazing guy, Dr. Fulmer, who's going to be my next guest, who is a sommelier of childhood, development and how we're affected by our childhood. That's actually next week. So anyway, let's just get into this, Tamsin, because I want to start off first with your backstory. One of the things people love to know what people do and all of that stuff, but I think what they really want to know is why. Because that's where we harmonize the brain, the thoughts and the ideas with the heart. So let's get into it. Oh, I see everybody's commenting in here. So, hey, what's up, Howie? Howie, thanks for this amazing introduction. And I see a lot of our friends. So, we will all be hanging out in the Clubhouse room after. So Tamsin, tell us a little bit about your backstory, kind of what that vibe is that I learned in that first chapter, and how you became who you are.
How I became the chief habit scientist. So I grew up in London, amazing childhood, moved to the US for a 2-year postdoctoral fellowship in 2002 and never left. In St. Louis, had 2 sons, and then in 2007 moved to Cleveland, Ohio, where my ex-husband, got a tenure-track job at Case Western. And about a year into living here in Cleveland, at which point I'd left academia and had decided that I really was not the kind of person that liked to work for other people. And had branched out on my own. As at that point, I was a yoga teacher, doing the Yummy Mummy Lululemon Brigade, but also working with inner city teenagers and counselors and therapists and children on the autism spectrum and with ADHD.
By the way, I have to give reactions of the chicken, because she doesn't show herself but she's sitting there in the room going like this. I like this woman.
And my younger son, who was at that point 2, ended up in the ER 3 times. And the third time, it was about 7 hours of testing. It was the Thursday after Labor Day. My ex-husband, my husband, had gone home to be with our 4-year-old. And the nurse came into the room and said, I'm really sorry, but you need to come and chat with the pediatric oncologist, which are not the words you want to hear. As the mother of a little person. And so I walked into the hallway in the ER at the Cleveland Clinic, and this very sweet man looked me in the eye and said, I'm really sorry, but your son has cancer. And so this became a big part of me, changing my life, really, because I developed a whole load of, chronic issues that every doctor I went to. So I went to all the allopathic doctors, like, do I have food allergies? Why am I getting hives? Why am I bloating? Why am I putting on weight, losing weight? Why can't I sleep through the night? Why have I got all this anxiety? All of these things that were bubbling up. And test after test revealed nothing. And so they would just go, I don't know, like, here's a sleeping pill script. I don't know, here's something like, here's Prilosec, all of these. And I was like, look, I'm not going to start suppressing symptoms when you don't understand the root cause, because it's just going to get worse. And that's what led me to Ayurveda. Ayurveda is the sister science of yoga, and it literally means Ayurveda, the science of life. And what I realized diving into that was that I was living in a reactionary model, which of course is ironic because my PhD thesis was intention and reactivity, was looking at the tension between living an intentional life and living a reactive life, right? And what I discovered was that I hadn't been going to bed and getting up and eating and exercising and taking care of everything in a sort of ritualistic, regularized way. And when I started doing that, all my symptoms went away. So me being me, I was like, well, fuck, this stuff works. I need to get certified in it. So I got certified in Ayurveda. And then I was like, and I need to share this with other people. So then I got certified as a health coach in that model and started doing that. I then realized that the people I liked working with tended to be entrepreneurs and executives, sort of the high level, lots on their plate, massive overwhelm, but they had a big, juicy life mission and they couldn't get through to it. So I then went and got an executive coaching certification at Weatherhead here at Case Western so that I could have that mix. And so, one of the things that I really am a big believer in is blending the two together. So initially I had two businesses. I had the executive coaching business where I wouldn't say fuck and I'd take up my nose ring. And I was working with CEOs and principals. And then I had my health coaching where I was all like hippie and like tie-dye. And then my marriage imploded. He walked out 4 times, my ex-husband. The 4th time he walked out, I was like, and we're done. Let me
ask you a question without going too deep into that.
Yeah.
Because I find this fascinating, and I ask questions on behalf of my audience, right? Because I feel like I'm in sync with them.
I'm an open book. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to go too far because I want to get into the habits, but I'm hearing 2 things happen at one time. You're going through massive growth and breakthroughs, and you're just shattering things and moving kind of organically, driven by the universe and all that.
Yeah.
When you look at this idea of him walking out, regardless of what his role of that was, we don't have to talk about that. That's in your past, right?
Right.
What role did your growth and forward propelling movement play in that separation?
Oh, it was huge for me because it required me to redefine my vision for my life, right? Because, my parents are about to hit their 50th wedding anniversary. My grandparents were together for over 60 years, and I was surrounded by all these amazing marriages. So for me, it required me to massively reshift this idea I had of what my life was going to look like, which was to be a mother and a wife as a core part of my identity.
That's so big. If you look back, because one of the things that we're doing here is I love the word intentional because it's kind of like married to proactive rather than reactive. If we're going to start looking to move forward, which I think is the first step to deciding what habits you need to build, and we're going to get into that. We have to be able to look back and come to terms with those things. I've got my own thumb sucking story, and we could share that some other time, but I played a big role in that. And part of the role that I played is that when I made a conscious decision to propel forward and grow, you kind of leave, when somebody grows into their, actualized self, you have a tendency of highlighting people that are not growing. So that was my point. So
right. No, and and as the stress had built in our lives and he was trying to get tenure and our child was sick, we both had very different reactions to stress too, which made it harder, right? My approach to stress was, meditate more, green smoothies, journaling, going to bed at 9, going down that route. And he went down the let's argue and drink wine and rah and like fight it out, which when you have these very different coping strategies, it elevates the stress between you as well,
And I would say we forgive him for he knows not what he does, right? Because you're living, and we're going to shift into that now. Exactly. You're living an intentional life, and an intentional life is a conscious life where where you're going, what matters most, which means like the bouncer outside of a bar, you get to check IDs and say yes or no to things. So for anybody that is coping with life with those things, I'm indifferent to it. It makes total sense. And I've done it before too. So we'll just pray for them and forgive them.
Right.
So, so where we're at right now, I love how neuroscience and academia and all this stuff, finds your way to yoga, right? I love every time you sip from that cup. That is just too crazy. I thought I was the only one in the world that had that cup. So I always love how people from the neuroscience world, because they become so aware of the actuality of how things happen, they tend to move into practices of meditation and yoga and get spiritual and all that stuff. So coming straight forward, tell me how you kind of found your way to falling in love with, to the extent, because I know you started coaching and everything. Where did the whole idea of habit forming come into play, to the point where you decided to actually help other people learn about it?
So, it was a realization of my own habits, right? And when I started, working on my own habits and getting out of that, when you become a mother, it's, and you're on the plane and they're like, put your own mask on first. You're like, ha, 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 fuck you. I'm putting it on my child first, right? And I remember being like, what are you thinking? Like, you're a mother, right? When I started realizing that I was serving everybody else before myself, that all fell apart. And so I had to really get into that place of like, when I serve myself, and I do it from a place of love and respect, and that it's actually going to make me serve my community more efficiently and from a place of love, then my whole life changed, right? And, one of the core features of the Ayurvedic practice is this thing called dinacharya, which are your daily rituals, your daily habits. And once I started, instituting those in my own life, I realized that habits were really, really fundamental to my well-being. And, the other thing that was really attractive to me about Ayurveda was that in the West, healthy means absence of disease, which is good. But in the East, healthy is, are you seated in the self? Are you seated in the self? Which is a completely different way of understanding what it means to be happy and well-being, and in a state of well-being, right? And I realized that, so I got my habits together and started teaching people how to have good habits. And a lot of them were the Ayurvedic habits, scraping your tongue in the morning, drinking warm lemon water, eating your biggest meal in the middle of the day, understanding the cycle of the seasons and the energies, understanding your energetic profile so that you could operate, in flow rather than pushing and battling. And then I realized, when my husband walked out and my cousin died and all these other things, that, but that even though I was quote unquote well, in that like I didn't have any symptoms that could be classified in the like DSM anxiety depression space, and I didn't have any symptoms, in terms of sleeping and food and digestion, I was not happy in myself. I wasn't seated in myself, right? I was in this marriage for the sake of my children, not for the sake of myself, which meant that I wasn't healthy in the Ayurvedic sense.
Man, I think everybody, including me, is going like, yep, that's me. Just quickly, I'd like to clarify, because our listeners love to look stuff up and learn more about it. You said it's an Ayurvedic term that represents daily habits called dinacharya.
Yeah, it's DINA and then CHARYA, dinacharya. And it's basically, like getting up, meditating, scraping your tongue, drinking warm water, moving, eating lunch at the same time every day. It's just about creating a routine, really.
Well, one of the things that we're going to do, and just as a reminder, because we've got a growing room in Clubhouse, right? And you can find me at Clubhouse at Makes Sense, and then jump into this room, because right after this, at about 8:30 a.m., maybe a little bit past, Tamsin and I are going to get in there after the podcast ends. And by the way, this is recorded on many avenues, but it's also found, this episode will also be found in the next couple of days on the Rise Up with Dragon show at iTunes. But one of the questions that I'm going to ask you in that room that I know a lot of people are going to want to know is, and this is not triggering the next phase of this interview, but I'm gonna get into what Tamsin's recommendation, maybe top 3, top 5 habits to practice are. So I get it now. In terms, that's why it's called Make Sense. My Clubhouse handle. I'm a sense maker, and I came here today to create a new friendship with this sister from another mister of some sort. But also I get her, and once again, when you read her book, and everybody should read this book, it's for those of you that are eating healthy but miss like cheeseburgers, her book's like a cheeseburger. Right? You're gonna feel like you're cheating, and you're gonna enjoy it. I just make that shit up on the fly. I don't know where it comes from. But Tamsin, one of the things, and this is like super, super powerful. Talk a little bit about those shoulds and oughts. When I read that, because I'm in the beginning phase of her book, big shout out to my friend Jim Quick, who's a great friend of mine, and he wrote the book Limitless, taught me how to speed read. So I'm flying through your book, but it's been a day. Talk about shoulds and oughts, because a lot of people fall below the line of responsibility, meaning they can decide what they want, but they typically are blocked from making that big dream and creating that compelling future by some of the shoulds and oughts. So talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the shoulds and the oughts. So the oughts are part of this, framework, this academic framework. We have the ideal self, the real self, and the ought self, right? So the ideal self is, what we aspire to, right? The real self is, I'm white, I'm a woman, I have 3 kids, I'm 44, I'm from London, right? So those are the real defining characteristics of who I am. And then the ought is, I ought to look this way. I ought to make this much money. I ought to be happy, right? And society has created a huge amount of pressure around the shoulds and the oughts in terms of who we are and how we show up and what we should be grateful for and what we should need and what we should be, I love my phone and it's been amazing during the pandemic, but if you don't curate your feed efficiently, you're getting on Instagram or whatever and you're going like, look at my kid's birthday party. I'm doing it all wrong. Like I should be wearing this. My bedroom should look like this. My dining table should look like this. I should. And a friend of mine gave me this CD when we still had CDs, with this band called Wookie Foot. And one of the songs was Don't Should on Me, right? Like, don't should on me, don't should on other people. And when we should on each other, we create this toxic space. The other way of talking about it, which I love, is masturbation. Like, do not masturbate, right? And part of, living a life with intention and focus is to really articulate a vision for your broader life. So that I do that with my clients. I do 3 things, right? I do the telescope, like where do you want to go? What's the thing that's drawing you forward? What's the thing that's getting you out of bed when it's 5 a.m. and there's like 3 feet of snow outside, to go to the gym, to meditate, to journal? Then the daily habits, which is the microscope. How are you actually spending your time? And is it connected to where you want to go? And then mindset, right? Because if you don't work on your mental habits, and that's your own relationship with yourself and how you value yourself, your self-talk, the cycle of trust in terms of intuition, and then your boundaries around letting other people should on you, right? Or your boundaries around when things like the election and the pandemic and all of these things that are outside of you, if you let them dominate you and take over and should on you, then you don't keep on your path and you're not living your life your way, which this is your one precious life. And even if you believe in reincarnation, you might come back as a mosquito. So let's do this right this time around, right?
That would totally suck. Literally, right? Oh my God. I just imagine myself, being the most annoying creature in the world, like biting you, taking your blood, potentially passing some sort of disease and hurting you at the same time. That's impending death. So just quickly, I notice people are starting to ask questions and they're in the queue in the Clubhouse. We will be in there in the next 8 minutes or so, and we'll engage with Tamsin. She'll join us in there in just a second. So here's what's fascinating about habits. Now, we're talking about shoulds and oughts right now. And the way I just interpreted it is shoulds and oughts are not necessarily a bad thing if they're in alignment with what you've decided is what I call your value vision, your vision value. When you look and you have this vision and it's in alignment with the things that matter most, well, then you should do this and you ought to do that. I think we're talking about the shoulds and oughts that have been programmed by our mother, father, teacher, preacher, and society. They're not ours, right? Our analytical mind that creates perceptions. Somebody else gave it to us, right? So let's. I think
don't play your movie on my screen. That's what I'll say to my clients, right? Don't play your movie on my screen.
I am the director, the writer, and the leading role of this comeback story. Here's what's interesting about habits, because somebody is learning about this and they're saying, okay, this whole idea of building habits, it's something I should take a look at, because we are, I mean, there's that saying that you are the 5 people that you hang out with.
Right.
But what I like to do is say, well, why are you hanging out with them? So if you really look at the things that we practice every day, you'll identify that you're reprogramming your subconscious mind that runs the show. So I always loved the idea of looking at this concept. And this is what I love about the name of your book. The first thing, before I knew anything about it, it said force of habit, right? That showed me a positive side of it and a negative side, because we say habits are hard to break, but that could be good habits or bad habits. Wouldn't it be cool if you had good habits that were hard to break?
Right. And that's what I say to people. So, the inherent definition of habit is something that's hard to break. So the definition of habit has the negative context to it, right? And, the reason I'm so passionate about habits is that 90% of our self-care behavior, habit. Over 50% of what we do every day in our life, habit. 56% of what we do at work every day, habit, right? So habits are huge and they play a huge role. And, one of the things about them is that our brain is brilliant, right? This goal achieving machine between our ears is just such a fucking juicy, powerful tool, right? And if we learn how to harness it and create habits that work, then our life changes, right? We make 35,000 decisions every day. And that's where we get into trouble, right? When we're making 35,000 decisions every day and we're going, when am I going to work out? When am I going to have the green smoothie? Am I going to put spinach in it or am I going to put kale in it? When you're wasting time and energy on those kinds of decisions, then you don't create the time and space and energy for all of the juicy stuff. I mean, that's why when you look at people like, Zuckerberg, who wears the same piece of clothing every day, right? He's reducing the decision. Getting up every day and putting on leggings for me reduces the decision. I know I'm going to work out, right? Having things in place, having the habit before trigger the next habit reduces the decision. We've all got the same 24 hours in the day. When you create those links, when you stack your habits effectively, you liberate so much of this prefrontal cortex for doing really fucking amazing stuff in the world. So that's really what I'm all about. I'm like, let's create an amazing world for the people that we're passionate about. So for me, it's for women. Like, I want women to have access to information about their bodies, about money, about running the world, so that as half the world, they have the power, right? How do I do that? I teach people how to create healthy habits so that they've got more time and energy and can have, the time and space to do what they want, but also to make money so that I can funnel it towards the ACLU Legal Defense Fund, towards Planned Parenthood, towards NPR so we have access to information, towards Loveland Foundation to provide mental health for people of color, right? Like, we need to lean into the stuff that we're passionate about so that we can create the world we want. I'll get off my soapbox now.
All right, I want to just take it and create a space where we can grab onto a couple of nuggets. I always love this idea, and we're getting great feedback. Awesome, this stuff. Tamsin just said a couple of things that, let's move from the jacuzzi experience. We're all like, woo, habits. We're all excited about habits. But then let's recognize that, we're about to move into the clubhouse and I want to interact. I want to hear what these people have to actually say. But let's move into the pivotal experience here where we're out of the jacuzzi and we do something about it. First of all, did anybody catch how she referred to the brain as the goal achieving machine, right? First of all, I love that. And I love the way she said it even more. But just remember that you are also in control of what the goal is, and you might be spending time filling that, consuming shit that is accomplishing the wrong goal. And I love the opposite now of reduce is reduce, right? I mean, did anybody just hear that? I mean, I love meeting people that say things that I know what reduce means, but I love when they put them in contexts like The Secret did, like, oh, the law of attraction, what's that? That's always been here. She said, reduce your decision. What are you doing on a daily basis to reduce your decision? And also, what's your decision? Right. What have you decided to do? Have you decided to check out today? Well, if you're doing nothing, then you're reducing that decision. If you've made a decision to experience life and create memories and live it around the things that matter most and get integrated in your life, well, then reduce it by performing healthy habits. So what's interesting about her book is it brings up the concept of habits, and it doesn't just say that habits are good. They could be against you as well, but they're powerful. So what we're going to do is we're going to start transitioning, getting ready to transition over to Clubhouse. So find me on Clubhouse, follow me, and we're going to engage in a conversation there. We've got about 40 minutes in there after this show, and you guys will be able to ask her questions, and I'm sure that you're hungry to do that. But Tamsin, tell us a little bit about, just here, how can people get in touch with you? Because I know you have a program coming up. Everybody needs to go buy The Cheeseburger, the book. It looks like our, Ray of fucking Sunshine cups, right? And maybe we'll have to sell these as well. Like, we'll get them. But guys, this is, I wouldn't have anybody on the show that it was not interesting. And I'm sure you guys are ready to interact with her. Get this book ASAP, and maybe Tamsin will find a way to send you a cup as well. But Tamsin, how can people get more Tamsin outside of where we're about to go? I know that you have a Facebook page, and I'll put a little image up as well as the book.
Yeah, so find me on Facebook. I do a lot of lives, and also join my group, Fabulous Habits for Conscious Leading with Dr. Tamsin. I've got a group program coming up in April that I run a few times a year, where we clear the decks and we do some mindset detoxing, some space detoxing, some body detoxing. And then we move into a space of really creating the vision of our lives. And I use a yogic framework, which includes pleasure, karma, like Kama Sutra, because I think we get very stuck in this sort of Protestant work ethic model here in the US of not taking our vacations. We're one of only 2 countries in the world that has no paid maternity leave, right? So it doesn't respect the power and value and time and energy of motherhood. So I'm a big fan of framing your life around pleasure and purpose and freedom, right? So the big key markers, but pleasure as a forefront, right? Rather than as a reward when I retire, at the weekend, when I hit my financial goals. Frame your life around pleasure, whether it's delicious cups of coffee, bunches of fresh tulips in your home, massages once a week, lunch with your kids. It doesn't have to be the cruise or the big financial thing. But when you frame your life in terms of pleasure, everything flows more easily. So find me on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on all the social media channels, not really Twitter, not a big Twitter fan. Facebook, I'm on Facebook a lot. Come and have a conversation with me about habits.
Awesome. Well, I know a lot of people are gonna join that program. Tamsin, I'm going to be completely transparent. This was a lot cooler than I thought. I mean, I knew it was going to be cool, but I'm always open to the possibilities of greatness. But where I'm at right now is, I'm excited to get into the Clubhouse room, and we're going to do that now, and people are waiting. So make sure that you join that, Tamsin. Mm-hmm. I'm excited for that to be over, and for Chicken and I to create a friendship with you, because it's just so obvious that we were supposed to meet you. We're on a journey ourselves. We practice a lot of these things. And I love the idea of you and I and us putting our minds together to take this thing even a step further for ourselves selfishly, and then pay it forward to others. Love it. So awesome. We're gonna meet in the Clubhouse room now. Everybody's welcome. That's where you can actually ask her questions and get a rich conversation going. And we'll be in there in a second. And I just want to say, if you learned something today, give it away. Share this video. Bring people into Clubhouse, because that's how it's going to stay. If you want to keep something, give it away. And we're going to do our little outro here. And I just have to say, I got this little program on my iPad, and I made this music. So this is a Dragon original cut. So love it, and I'll see you in Clubhouse. Thanks, Tamsin.
Thank you, sir.